point of a test screening is to show it in front of an audience that will be open to the movie, because we're all so close to the material.
We've seen movies that have tested really well not do well. We've seen movies test really poorly do great.
It was really nerve-wracking.
It's sort of like making a dinner and having the souffle fall at the last minute. You just don't serve it. You know, you have to come up with something else.
Good afternoon, Aline.
We have been test screening our movies since we started making them. If you have a movie that doesn't please people, spending $30 million to market it and get people in who aren't going to be pleased is not going to solve the problem by any way, shape, or form. So we find it a very valuable tool.
So they're trying to gauge more accurately what people like or dislike. And I think before, it was more of just a general feeling whether they liked the movie or not. They weren't going into specifics as much as they do now.
Nowadays, people fill out cards, it's calculated.
We have an idea already of who we think the target audience is.
Definitely with Final Destination, we were going for it's sort of like a teen thriller horror crowd.
The only thing about the test screening the audience that you should worry about is your recruit. Are you recruiting the right people to watch your movie? If you look at the questionnaire and they say, this is not my kind of movie, I wouldn't watch a scary movie, don't listen to what he has to say, because he's never going to pay $8 anyways.
Somebody will say they don't like the violence, they don't like the language, and then you see that they're 55 years old and haven't seen any hot movies in the last 10 years. Then you know that that's just not something that you necessarily have to abide by.
They might say, you want to see this horror movie with Devon Sawa, and give a 1 or 2 line synopsis of what the movie is.
You recruit people that appeal to this sort of thing, like maybe someone who's seen Scream.
Well, at the first screening, everyone's always very anxious because very few people have seen the movie.
For me, it was a matter of saying, well, after the screening, am I going to be fired?
The special effects are incomplete. There's a temporary score. And before the movie, the guy will come out and go, okay, this is a temporary situation, and when it's in the theater, it'll look just like every other movie.
We sort of hold our breath and see how it goes, because that's the real test.
They watch the movie, and the filmmakers have a chance to watch your reaction.
Pretty early on in this movie, we knew that we had them.
That scene we had no idea was going to play like that.
Then you can just drop fucking dead.
And it looked like a wave had washed over the audience. People were kind of rocking back and forth.
Ooh, ah, you're going, hey, no.
I was just blown away.
After the bus hit, we added like 40 seconds extra, because after the first screening, we realized that the next scene had gone on halfway through before the audience had actually calmed down from the reaction from the bus hit. Hello? As the screening went on, I relaxed more and more.
There were some things in the middle of the movie originally. There was a romance between the 2 lead characters and a very long scene with them on the beach. And that didn't really work.
In the original cut of the beach scene, they make love on the beach.
It just suddenly jumps on her, and that's like this, and then the scene is over, and it didn't really satisfy insofar as sort of teen sexy stuff is concerned.
We thought the only way you can really cheat death, or the only way you can really beat death, is to bring a new life into the world, because you can't really beat death.
But then, you got to the pregnancy bit, and you could just tell, oops, I lost him.
Alex, get away from there!
And then when Alex died, you just went, damn it, I lost him again.
Through the whole movie, they were having fun and yelling at the screen and jumping in their seats with the bus, with the flying head, with everything. And then the end, when Alex dies, they're just sitting there.
A little more. You're almost there. A little more. You have a beautiful baby boy. Oh, baby. I felt Alex pass through me. Like the lady died.
The whole baby thing they didn't like. It was part of the love story with Alex and Claire didn't work, and they didn't buy the baby at the end. They thought it was goofy and wasn't satisfying enough.
It was too sweet and almost predictable compared to the rest of the movie, where at every minute there was a new surprise.
Sometimes you can shoot above the taste of an audience, which doesn't mean that you're smart and that they're not so smart, but means that there is a sort of Bible of entertainment which has certain tenets in it, and that this particular idea for the ending just shot above the taste level and the expectation level and the surprise level that the audience was looking for. And this sort of spiritual ending, which had to do with Clear having a child and having the child be the vindication of how you beat death, was perhaps a little too esoteric and not visceral enough for the public that we were trying to attract, which was arguably a postmodern Scream crowd.
Alex.
That was another thing in the first test. People really didn't like Carter. They didn't like that Carter lived.
Hey.
I'm sorry Alex never got to see him.
He sees him. Every day.
Claire. Alex was right. It did skip us. There was a design, and we beat it. We won.
Now that we've won, Carter, there's a chance at a full life. A chance that I'm not going to waste. Because for all of us, there is that one day.
The loftier goals of the ending kind of fell on deaf ears a little bit.
One day.
You know, we went for something a little more, sentimental, a little deeper, and they just wanted to see more death.
Afterwards, they give out these questionnaires, and people fill them out.
So there's a series of standard questions, how they would rate the movie, would they recommend it to their friends? And then there's a bunch of open-ended questions as well, where we ask them to tell us which scenes they liked best and least, what they would tell their friends about the movie, that sort of thing. And then there are also questions that are tailored specifically to the movie. We ask them to rate the characters and the relationships in the movie, the humor, the romance, the horror.
You can just go insane if you read all of these.
Corny love scene.
It scared the crap out of me.
The monkeys hanging were weird.
If you were to describe the movie to a friend, what would you say? Gay.
This movie kicks ass.
Scenes like least were tit, tit, sex, death.
I know what you did last summer, she say, but it says, I didn't even see it.
Not enough sex.
What did you like best about the movie? Porno scene. There isn't no porno scene.
What did you like least about the movie? The shitting. What?
Let's go take a shit.
I've never seen so many toilet scenes in the movie, but yeah, I know Jim and Glenn have some fetish.
What is holding you back from rating this movie excellent? And it says, more pussy. I don't even want to say the next stuff, because this is just disgusting. It's basically just numbers, it's a numbers game.
And we use those numbers in films that test inordinately poorly in test screenings to really refashion our marketing commitment. And as shocking as this may seem to filmmakers, there's no reason to literally throw good money after bad.
It's more about the playability, than actual hard numbers at the end of the day. You see that the audience is with you throughout the movie, then you're not concerned if the numbers don't reflect that.
The numbers were above average, but not like substantially above average.
That was actually a really good sign, because it said that if we fixed up some of the problematic areas, we were going to be in really good shape.
We talk about how it went last night, why we think it didn't test so well, and what was missing. The people didn't like that Alex died, and so in the room we just start saying, well, how do we fix this? So we decided that we needed to come up with a new ending. We don't want Alex to die at the end, and we want Carter to die.
Let's go completely the opposite of what we had, which was this kind of thoughtful, contemplative ending. Let's just go for an adrenaline hit. We know what works. What works is the death scenes.
We needed to play with those beats again, and then one big wallop that would kill Carter.
Our mandate in this test screening process is always, let's try it. And in this case, even though reshooting the ending surprisingly cost almost $2 million because it was like 6 days of work, I felt very strongly that we needed to do something dramatic in that sense, not only dramatically dramatic, but also dramatic in terms of change to improve the movie for the audience that it was intended for. Let's give the audience what they want. They want Alex to live, they want the bad guy to die.
I told you you were next, and it just skipped me. So who's next?
The audience just started applauding and going nuts.
People actually jumped out of their seats and cheered.
The scores improved like 50%. I mean, it was like astounding.
You have to see the movie.
The new ending obviously works better for the audience, and it works better for this kind of movie.
The ending goes, and the sign comes down, and people go, hey, woo, they go nuts, and the lights come on. You know, I turned around, looked at Bob, and he was looking at me like, I own you. I was right. And I'm like, okay, all right, you're right.
This is not about final cut, it's just about collaboration. Both Jim and Glenn were very collaborative on the process of what are we going to do to fix this, and it wasn't like, this is my ending and I insist on it.
They knew that the first part of the movie was really strong, and if they could fix that ending, that they would really have a good film on their hands.
Great filmmakers make movies that don't work. Very experienced people make movies that don't work.
Steven Spielberg doesn't test his movies. You know, we have to, you know, and I think that we should listen.
It's a case-by-case basis if you do exactly what a test audience wants.
Well, in the wrong hands, it's like this is a very dangerous process, and we're very cautious with testing. It's not the be-all and end-all here at New Line. I mean, the first Austin Powers tested horribly. The 7 did not test very well. These are some of our biggest successes.
We're not making this movie for our parents or for our friends. We're making it for as big an audience as we can get. You're not at the mercy of the audience. That's who you're making all this stuff for, is the audience. So if they don't like it, you have a problem. You have to deal with it because that's what you do.
I'll see you soon.
You think they're still up there? Somehow, Flight 180, are they still in flight? Somewhere? Are they safe?
When I was a kid, like 6 or 7, I used to worry so much about my parents dying. Lying awake at night just worrying.
Yeah, well, most kids do, I guess.
Most kids never have it happen. When I was 10, my dad went into a 7-Eleven for cigarettes. I guess that he heard someone say, don't turn around, so on reflex, or thinking it was a friend joking, he did. And a guy blew his head off. Life became shit after that. My mom just couldn't deal anymore. She married this asshole who my mom with a real dad would have crossed the street to avoid this guy. He didn't really want a kid, so my mom didn't either anymore. That was the design for my father and my family? Then fuck death. I have thought a lot about that somewhere, Alex. It exists, that place, where my dad is still safe. He had a full pack of cigarettes that night and just kept driving. Or me and my mom, my dad are still together and have no idea about this life here. Where our friends are still in the sky. Where everyone gets a second chance. But that place might only exist in my heart. And maybe now in yours. I haven't experienced too many second chances in my life. Sure, I haven't seen any. But because of you, I will get a second chance. Because of me, you will. With you in my life, that place right now existing in our hearts can become a real part of this life. That is the only way we can ever really beat death. By making something special out of this life.
Stay in the car! Don't touch anything, you'll be safe there, okay? You're grounded by the tires! The car's gonna explode. You know what to do. When I do this, it'll skip you and it'll all be over, okay? The only way we can beat death again. You know what to do, all right? I'll always be with you.
Alex, get away from there!
You have a beautiful baby boy.
I felt Alex pass through me. Like the lady died.
So 13th of May, 9:25.
We beat it, Alex.
Sorry Alex never got to see him.
He sees him every day.
Claire. Alex was right. It did skip us. There was a design, and we beat it. We won.
All that we've won, Carter, is a chance at a full life. A chance that I'm not going to waste. Because for all of us, there is that one day. One day.
Oxnard is probably not exactly the hotbed of metaphysical territory. I don't know if I lived someplace bigger if it would make any difference. I think just living in Southern California makes it okay. It would be tough if I lived in South Carolina or someplace like that.
You ready to go? You ready to go for a walk, Jezebel?
I remember some of my first psychic experiences now looking back, but at the time, I kind of saw everything as normal. I didn't really see anything that I was doing as out of the ordinary. I grew up in Ventura, California, and had a fairly normal childhood. Leave it to Beaver kind of thing. My parents were traditional. I was taught not to question things because that was showing a lack of faith. So if I had questions about things they were telling me in church, I got a lot of trouble for asking questions if it didn't make sense to me. My parents' attitude toward the paranormal was, even if you read your horoscope in the newspaper for fun, that was dangerous and that was considered a sin, and don't ever do it seriously or you're gonna go to hell. I knew stuff about people. I kind of understood their motives and what was going on behind their words. They don't argue that I have some ability and I can know things that there's no explanation for. But for a long time they were worried that it was coming from maybe an evil source. So I kind of kept my opinion to myself. I started making a split from the church when I was old enough to refuse to go. And it was tough on my parents. You know, that kind of put a little bit of barriers up between us. I pretty much dated and worked and held a single life until when I met Steve. We got married in '88. My abilities, I think, really started showing up when the kids were born. I think I've started feeling a lot of connection with the kids, almost telepathically. I'd hear the phone ring, and I'd walk over there to pick it up, and then it would really ring. And I'd go, whoa. That's when the dreams started. I started having the dreams that I realized were coming true. When I dreamed about the plane going down in New York. Why did I have this foreknowledge? I mean, that's a horrible thing to know, that this is going to happen and there's nothing you can do. One night I had a dream about a little girl drowning. The next day I saw in the headlines about this little girl by this name who had drowned. As these things started happening, you know, you can't dismiss it anymore. You're going, something is going on here. So I went and talked to a friend of mine who had been studying metaphysics for 20 years. She felt that by hypnotizing me, we could get information and it wouldn't be so traumatic for me. And that coincided with the very first case I worked on. One night I had this dream that I was in the back seat of this blue-green Altima. We were driving down this curvy road. I knew the people in front, and the person in front was my husband, and this woman in front of me was his girlfriend. However, it wasn't really my husband. I mean, it wasn't Steve. So I knew that in the dream I was somebody else. I was experiencing what somebody else experienced. And I was arguing with this woman. And at some point I realized that I was in grave danger, that their intentions were bad. And I woke up. 3 days later, I'm looking in the newspaper and I see that a woman is missing. It was somebody actually I went to high school with. And that her husband and girlfriend are the main suspects. They had rented a car, a blue-green Altima, and they turned the car back in 2 days later, blood-soaked. At that point, I knew, oh my God, that's her. It's got to be her. I mean, I know that I was seeing through her eyes, and I know who did this. I went to Beverly. She hypnotized me, and so I asked for more details about the crime, and I was able to see her location. Though I didn't know what road it was, I knew she was right next to a road, and I knew she was in this embankment where the little trickling stream. And I could see her as plain as day. I knew that she was killed by a blunt force to the back of her head. And every weekend they were holding a search party. And I was just racked with guilt. I mean, it felt horrible because I knew that I could help. So I went down there and I said, I think I know where she is. They all kind of gathered around and they said, well, what do you know? And so I told them what I had seen. And they decided to take me to the house where she lived and to maybe get me some of her jewelry or something to hold. I didn't expect to come face to face with the husband. He came out and he took one look at me and he said, oh, you must be the psychic that they've got working. Since I'm very good at seeing through people, I could see through him, and he was terrified. And I remember thinking it was kind of funny because I didn't know who was more terrified of who. He told me that we'd never find her because she was too deep. And I looked at him, I looked him in the eyes, he's lying to me. And he was doing a lot of things to block me, like he'd get really close to me. And it was stressing me out and upsetting me, and so I couldn't pick anything up because he was scaring me, because he didn't want us to find her. He didn't help with the search party, nothing. He was very cocky and arrogant. They had a big van set up with maps all over the side. So we got yellow highlighters and we started highlighting all the places that fit my description. I went out with the search party, trampling through bushes and going through all the places that seemed to fit. So after we had searched a couple of places and we didn't find her where I thought we were going to find her, I started getting discouraged. But I was really determined that we were going to find her that day. I mean, I was really determined that the suffering was going to stop, because it just wasn't fair. I mean, they were dying inside. And then I decided to go on home. And it was maybe 2 hours later, I got a phone call, and they said we found her. They had found her on a deserted road up in the hills. She was less than 100 yards from the road, and she had been dumped down this ravine. That's what he was saying by she's too deep, because she was 30 feet down. The autopsy report showed that she was killed by a blunt blow to the back of the head. She was brutalized horribly, and I didn't know any of that. I didn't pick up any of that psychically, thank God, because she was stabbed like 50 times, and she was beheaded. When they found her down in the ravine, they also found her next to the body of a goat. The boyfriend and the girlfriend were into Satanism, and she was actually a human sacrifice for his birthday. And I don't think anything's ever scared me so bad as dealing with him, because that's the first time I've ever faced evil. I mean, come face to face with darkness. So I think she died before all of the trauma, and I was able to tell that to her family. I was really able to talk to them on a spiritual level. It was a flood of all kinds of emotions. That time was tough for for me and my husband because he kind of scoffed at it and made fun of it and didn't believe a lot of what I was saying. And when we found that missing woman, that was kind of a turning point for him, where he was going, okay, you found someone. I mean, within a week, I was working on another case. So I felt pretty much like, okay, here we go. I guess this is what we're going to do. Another family heard about my involvement. Their daughter had been killed. Her name was Gloria de la Cruz. She was a mariachi singer. She was 18 years old. She had gone to bed one night and kissed her mom goodnight, and the next morning she was gone. She had been dumped in a dumpster in Los Angeles. And again, I went and got hypnotized. I got a name, I got a license plate, a car, the personality of the guy, why he did it, how he did it, what route he took her on. I knew the whole scenario. It was like watching the whole thing take place when they finally did make an arrest. I had said his name was Rosengren, and his name was Robinson. He drove the car that I had said. Certain aspects of his personality were right on, right on the money. He confessed behind closed doors and told the detectives that he drove down PCH exactly the way I had said. And at that point I was going, wow, wow. I was amazed. So my life was all of a sudden spiraling out of control. Here I was, this mom with 3 kids, and all of a sudden people were calling me and asking me to do this. It was mind-boggling for me and my husband. We would be out doing something with the family and I would just burst into tears and he'd be going, what? You don't like your taco? Or something. He had no idea the emotional impact of what I had been through. He couldn't keep up with the changes, and I was just becoming a completely different person than I was just a few years ago. A completely different person. I saw the world differently. I saw everything differently. He was the kind of person who he hates change. He likes things to stay the same. I felt kind of alone because he didn't understand. Ultimately, we split up. We'd been together for about 9.5 years when we split up. I get several letters a week asking for help. And they're usually asking for help finding a missing person. Lots of missing people out there. I get calls from all over the country and all over the world. I don't take compensation for criminal cases or missing person cases. I couldn't work out a system where I felt comfortable profiting from someone else's tragedy. Tonight we are having hamburgers and French fries. I used to have a pager and I would get paged at all hours and all the time, and we couldn't go out to eat. So I finally got rid of the pager, so okay, forget it. We've been doing this for 3 years. In some ways, it's easier, I think, than it was when I was married. All right, does anybody need anything? We've created our own traditions.
Can you put the mustard on?
Okay, so who's gonna go first?
I'm grateful I had a good day at school.
You did? You have a track meet tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning? Mm-hmm. Nicholas, of all the kids, has had the most profound, insightful dreams. Ever since he was 3 or 4, he's shown different psychic abilities. If he continues to nurture this and work on it, it's going to be amazing. He's going to be amazing.
I think it was pretty strange to read her mind.
What did you think when I told you that you kept reading my mind, that I was thinking stuff?
I thought it was cool. I know it was weird one time. A bus came by with black windows and there was a Esplanade sign. When it drives by with the windows like that, I can still see the sign, bright. I'm like, can I see through things or what?
Kinda, that's what it's kind of telling you, yeah. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse. I thought, well, he's got it. All I can do is be there for him and help him through it. You know what you seem to be pretty good at?
What?
You seem to be pretty good at knowing how people are feeling.
Oh, yeah. I'm good at that.
Yeah. You know what that's called? That's called empathic.
This award, it's the most important award you can ever get. It's the Student of the Month. The best student of the month.
If you were trying to explain to your friend what it was like to feel this way or to have empathy for somebody, how would you describe it?
Well, just kind of, I feel deeply about people's thoughts and how they feel. See, these are Pokemon.
He doesn't really talk much about the psychic aspect, so I don't think he's that aware, really, as much as his brother. Do you know what a psychic is?
A person that knows a lot of stuff. Like, saves kids.
Saves kids? What do I do? What kind of job do I do?
And we try to help kids before the kidnappers kill them.
Over the course of maybe 6 months to a year, I developed this program called Smart Hearts, because I had learned so much about how kids were kidnapped and how kidnappers worked, and there were a lot of similarities. I felt it was important that they learned, if somebody made them feel scared, that they learned to honor those feelings instead of shutting them down. You know, it could actually be a life-saving skill. And I'll be starting my next school Monday. They had 2 incidents just this week of men pulling up and saying things to little girls who are walking to school. I keep the psychic part under wraps because you have to be very careful not to upset the religious right. There's still this part of society who will hang you. And there's still laws throughout the state that it's illegal to give readings, and you can still get thrown in jail.
I kind of need to keep it a secret.
And why?
I think it's kind of annoying that people ask me to read their mind, and I think it'd be nice to keep it a secret. Plus, they might get jealous.
So that's up to you, huh? Who you decide to tell and who you don't tell?
Yeah.
Is that kind of hard to decide sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everybody's got this latent ability. Most of us spend a great deal of our lives making sure it stays closed off, like my parents. We receive stuff, but we do everything we can to ignore it or deny it or dismiss it. For me, I never know what's around the corner because it's never what I think. My life takes drastic turns all the time. I've probably worked on 50 plus cases. Readings kind of come and go. You know, I'll get swamped with requests and then I'll go through a lull. Stephanie beats me at this game all the time. Okay, I'm gonna say red.
Ding, ding, ding.
Black.
Ding, ding, ding.
Black.
Ding, ding, ding. Me and Mom.
All right. I could just feel a whole shift in society, and that's part of my goal in working with kids, is to kind of take that whole generation and say, you know, don't shut it down. It's okay. This is good for you. It's there to help you, because it changes your whole worldview. And you go through an amazing shift where you see the world completely differently than you did before. Start having a little more respect for the little miracles that happen around all the time.
J'avais un pressentiment. Un étrange pressentiment.
Salut, ça va?
L'avion va exploser! C'est pas une blague! Ça va exploser! On est descendu de l'avion parce qu'il a fait un cauchemar? Je l'ai vu. L'avion va exploser! L'avion va exploser!
Grâce à toi, je suis toujours en vie.
On dit qu'on ne peut pas prévoir l'heure de notre mort. Mais on sait qu'elle peut survenir à tout moment.
Et si Todd n'était que le premier de la liste?
En descendant de l'avion, vous avez déjoué la mort.
C'était un hasard.
Dans la mort, il n'y a ni hasard, ni échappatoire. Il vous faut deviner comment et quand elle va revenir.
Il y a un message derrière ce schéma. Il faut découvrir lequel, afin de déjouer de nouveau la mort.
Alex!
La mort n'en a pas fini avec nous. Je sais qui est le prochain.
Personne n'a le contrôle de la vie et de la mort, à part ceux qui prennent des vies, en causant la mort.
Je ne la laisserai pas faire. Tu te prends pour Dieu? Qui sera le prochain?